So in this video, I want to explain to you the differences in prices for an LED sign. So frequently I may have customers that are interested in a 2x4 sign, for example. Then they decide, hey, instead of a 2x4, I would want a 2x5 sign instead. So we're looking at a 2x5. Well, maybe not a 2x5, that's not going to show the difference that we want to see. So maybe a 3x5, right? So they want to go a little bit taller, a little bit wider. They're like, hey, I'm only going up 1 foot. I'm only going out 1 foot, so it shouldn't be that big of a difference. So let's take a look here. LED signs are typically, per square foot. So it's typically per square foot. So a 2x4, if we were to make that sign, then we're going with a 2x4, and then we go 1, 2, 4, right? So essentially, this is how many square feet? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 square feet, which means we're using 8 panels to make it, right? And it's actually a little bit more than a square foot, but just to make the explanation easy, we're using a square foot because each module is actually 12.6 square, right? So 12.6 by 12.6, so a little bigger than a square foot, but we'll just use a square foot for this example. Now let's say we want to move that up to the 3x5 instead. Then what we're looking at now is now we're going wider, going a little taller, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now for this sign, what we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, right? So we basically just use 15 panels to make this same size. So when we look at the pricing, what we can see is that 15 over 8, that's almost 2, right? If we added one more panel, so plus 1 is it make it 16, we'd basically say that's 2x, right? So it's almost 2x as big, right? So now consider this if it's double-sided. If you think about this, to make this 2x4 double-sided, I make another one, I'm using 16 panels for that, right? 16 panels. So basically, if I added just one panel here to this one, I could make this one, right? And make this double-sided. If I was to make this double-sided, then I'm going 15 times 2 to make that double-sided. So they're using 30 panels to achieve the same effect. So you can see why there's a big disparity in that price. So even though you don't see the big difference in the size here, when you're saying, hey, I'm only going 1 foot up and 1 foot out, you're saying, hey, it's not that big of a difference. But when you consider how many more panels you have to use to make it, then you understand at least where that cost comes from. So when it comes to this, then this is where you can make that distinction to say, hey, is this big enough for me, right? So if I were to do this, 2, 3, and I made the sign that size, is that okay, right? And then what's the advantage of adding the extra row? So if I was to add the extra row to it, I go up and down, across there. Okay, so by adding that extra row and that extra column, is there a big advantage? I would say maybe on the column there isn't that much of an advantage, because if I'm writing the words here, let's say I were to put 2 letters per line here, so 21, 21, 21, 21, 21, maybe I could put 2x more letters there, right? And then that's coming down here, so maybe you can add a few more letters at the end of your sentence, which is good. Now that could probably result in like maybe fewer sentences or making the text bigger and bolder. That's cool. I think the row would be more useful in this case, because I could go maybe 21, 21, 21, 21, 21. I get a whole nother line, and if depending on the size I'm making my text, I I could get up to another 2 lines there, right? I could get up to another 2 lines. So that may be more useful going a little bit taller than going wider. And then we look at the difference now. If we were to erase this, instead of 15 panels, then here we're only using 12 panels, right? So we kind of split the difference a little bit, so that helps to keep the cost down. But if you're trying to fill a certain space, then that's when it may make sense to add that extra row, because then you don't want to have these big gaps on either side of the sign, right? It's better to fill that space as best as possible, give that cleaner, nicer look. But if you're also on a budget, so that's the other thing to consider. If you're on a budget, and this is all you can afford. If you're on a budget and that's all you can afford, that's still going to be an effective sign that you can put your messages on. You can show some pictures. You can place some words. You could get up to 4 lines of text on there. Up to 4 lines. You can still do a picture of somebody's face. Show off your product. Do the prices. You can make the letters a full 25 inches essentially. So you can still get a lot of benefit from a 2x4, and if your budget allows it and you have the space to support it, then if you want to, you could go up to that bigger sign. But the other thing to consider is, if this is all your budget can afford, I would say start with this, right? It keeps your costs down, it gets you going digital, it brings that to about the price of what a static sign would cost. But at the end of the day, you're digital, right? You can change that message, change the color, change the font, change the picture, change the advertisements. You still get all that value. And then the great thing about the signs that we offer, which is a little bit different, is we make everything the same size. So everything is basically 12.6 by 12.6, right? What that means is we can go up or down in these increments. So if you purchase that 2x4 now, and then in the future you decided you wanted to make it a 3x4, then you could purchase 4 more panels and then add that to the top of that 2x4 that you purchased. Now that's a 3x4. Or you can purchase additional panels to then add to the left or the right if you're trying to make it wider, so you can add on to the sides. So that's the other thing that's pretty unique. And then generally, whenever you're going with a sign that's this small, that's when we'll recommend going with our higher resolution panels, because we only charge you for the difference in cost for the additional bulbs that we're putting on there. So you may find that if a sign uses 8 panels, for example, and the difference in cost per panel is, let's say $100 per panel, that's a difference in cost. If you're only doing 8 panels, then the difference in that overall sign is going to be $800, for example, right? And then that's a difference of, let's say, a sign that has 1,000 pixels up to a sign that has about 2,300 pixels per module. And then by going with the higher ones, then instead of the bulbs being like here, 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 for example, the bulbs are now going to be like here, 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 here. So they're much closer together, which means overall that image quality on that sign is going to be significantly higher, which means you can put more detail, the text is going to be sharper, the images are going to look nicer, and that may eliminate the need for having to upgrade the sign to a larger size, because then you can capitalize on that smaller sign and still have a big impact. So hopefully this helps and you understand the differences between the digital sign sizes, and you can understand why there would be a significant price bump depending on the size that you select. But it hopefully also gives you an alternative to say, hey, if you were hoping to go with a bigger sign and you're kind of edging on that budget a little bit, you'll notice that stepping down to a little smaller sign may not be that big of a compromise, right? Because in this 2x4 compared to that 3x5, that wasn't a big compromise, right? Going down when you see that, okay, you gave up 2 lines of text and just a few extra letters at the end. But think about it, if you were making a sign that was a 4 by 8 or a 5 by 10, and to make your budget work, instead of a 5 by 10, maybe you go down to a 5 by 9 or a 4 by 9. You'll see that, hey, it's a smaller sign, it's not that big of a compromise, but that could be a big savings there, and just that little change could actually be applied towards your installation budget, and maybe that offsets your installation cost as well. So that's one thing to consider. So again, if you have any other questions, visit our website at ledsciencecity.com, or you can give us a call at 866-343-4011. Thank you.